friends, welcome back to my channel. This is Jen with Lighthouse Oracle, bringing you another video in my beginners tarot series that I've just started. Today we're going to be focusing on the major arcana cards in the tarot deck. There are 22 major arcana cards in the 78 card deck, and we're going to just walk through each of the cards. I'm going to introduce them, certain elements that apply to each card. Of course, it's all pretty subjective, and you can also do your own research and see what properties and attributes these cards fit the best for you. But this is just what I found that fits the most for me, that I like to use during my readings. They involve, you can apply astrology, you can apply chakras, different feelings, imagery. It kind of just depends on your own imagination, really, and how you pick up certain elements in each card to give more detail to the story you're telling in a reading. So let's go ahead and get started. I have the original Rider-Waite tarot deck that I'm going to be using as a baseline in today's video, just because pretty much this is like the OG, and all the other decks that come after it are either inspired by or kind of just like same but different illustrations from the original deck. So why not start with the OGs? And then once you get more familiar with tarot, then you can, start your own collection and, pick cards and decks that really speak to you, that make you feel good, that, you love the pictures from, and things like that. So let's go ahead and get started. We have the Fool, so starting with 0, right? The number 0 is still a number. So the Fool is ruled by the element of air and the planet Uranus. Uranus typically resembles change. And so when we think of the Fool card, we think of new beginnings, fresh start, things like that. A breath of fresh air, things like that. You could also see it as kind of like I don't really know where I'm going, but I want to do this new adventure. So a little bit of you think of like the Fool it's a bit foolish because you're not really planned. This person, if you notice in the imagery too, they have like a tiny little sack with them, and it kind of feels like they're like, oh, I'm gonna start a whole new life with this. It's not very well planned, so you can pick up those kind of things from the images here. There's also a dog here, so the dog can represent loyalty if you pick that up in a reading. There's also a rose here, so you can see it as smelling the roses, kind of like that fresh new beginning, right? You're like, there we go. So there's the Fool. Up next, we have the Magician. The Magician is ruled by the element of air and the planet Mercury. So it's all about focus, creativity, manifestation. If you notice on the table here, there are all of the different suits from the minor arcana decks, minor arcana cards that are showcased here. So there's the pentacles, the cups, the swords, and the wands that represent all the elements as well. So if you want to apply elements into your readings as well, each card can have its own element to them. So this one is kind of like manifestation, so more of this air energy. But air is also like kind of things that are in the land of potential. Things are not exactly concrete, tangible yet. So you can kind of, Magician is like manifesting, right? So focus, creativity. What can you imagine, and what you can use all that imagination and condense it into reality. So thinking about, what do you imagine a dragon to look like? So you draw it out. Now that you've drawn it out, now it's tangible. So instead of it just being in your head, now it's an actual thing. It's drawn out, and you can go from like the drawing to an animation to claymation to, so it's kind of just like it went from the land of nothing and land of potential to a tangible thing, which is, think of what a magician does. Magician it could also represent trickster energy. And if we look at tarot and you decide that you want to also read the cards in reversal, they typically just mean the opposite of what it means upright. So say the Magician is manifesting, right? We're creating things. In reverse, it could be deception, illusions, tricking you to think that you are the master creator, in which, someone may it's more like a deceptive energy, right? Magicians are also masters of illusion, so it's kind of just bringing more of that energy into play. But it also depends on, you know, the topic of your reading and what your intention is for a reading. So it's all subjective. But continuing on, we have the High Priestess. The High Priestess is ruled by the element of water and also the planet, well, the moon. Not really a planet, but you know what I mean. So it's a very intuitive energy, very mysterious energy, kind of like a very inner knowing. The High Priestess, if you think about it, you know, there's also this crescent moon here by your feet. So you can pick up different things from the imagery itself to help interpret your reading better. So I noticed there's the black and white pillars, balance, right? Yin and yang energy, duality, having a balance of those so you can hone in on your intuition better instead of, you know, charging forward and just being like, oh, all emotion heavy or all just logic. It's kind of like, okay, let's just put those in a balance. I know what I know and how to move forward with the things that I know. The High Priestess is followed by the Empress. The Empress is ruled by the element of Earth and the planet Venus. So if you notice, there's the sign, the little symbol for Venus, which resembles attraction and love. That's what the planet means. And so if you think about attraction, the Empress represents abundance. So when you pull this card out, you can feel, oh my God, it's a very abundant energy. If you look at the imagery here too, there is all this wheat that's ready to harvest. It's very green, very luscious. So it gives that feeling of abundance. You see she's, you know, sitting really pretty. She has like, it's like very lavish lifestyle, things like that. So that's the Empress. And so I picked it up from the imagery itself too. The card is represented by Venus, but you can also take note of that from this heart that has a Venus symbol engraved in it. So that's how I see it. Next we have the Emperor. The Emperor is ruled by the element of fire and the astrological sign of Aries. So Aries is, if you notice, there's like all these rams on his throne. So you can if you kind of forget, you can pick that up from here too. But the Emperor is the partner of the Empress. So there's the Emperor and the Empress, right? So more of that, there's also female and feminine, masculine energy that comes into play as well. So that's something you can pick up on. So if you pull up the Emperor, you're like, oh, very masculine, dominant energy. If you pull both together or pull the Empress, you're like feminine energy. If you pull them both, you're like, okay, there's a balance of masculine, feminine energy, right? It's dual, it's two. And so the Emperor represents kind of strategy that, you know, what does an emperor mean to you? Emperor is like power, right? Dominance. You could also see it from like a facial feature, right? So if you look at the Emperor himself, he looks a bit stern, a little bit serious, a little bit, you know, he looks a little sus. But sometimes, like in reversals too, you can see it. I can get like 5 different feelings from this Emperor card. Like one feeling I get is like a leadership role, someone that takes charge and is like of his empire, right? Very powerful energy. Another one can be a dictator, right? A dictator also has a lot of power, but in a very toxic and negative way. I can also get a bit of that, you know, the Emperor that's kind of like my way or the highway, but in like a bratty sense. That's kind of what I'm feeling from this. And then I'm also getting like a protector. You see he has like armor on, which means, you know, to me it's kind of like, oh, he's ready for battle. He doesn't just lead, but he takes charge and he protects his people, things like that. So there's so many different elements or things that you can pick up from just one card. And again, it also depends on the type of reading that you're giving or getting, or, you know, trying to see. It's just, basically we're just storytelling with pictures. So next we have the Hierophant. The Hierophant is ruled by the element of fire and the sign Taurus. So it is earth, and it's like a bit of earth and fire energy, but the Hierophant typically resembles traditions, fitting in. If you notice, this person's kind of like a religious figure, and it's kind of like the pastor, you know, teaching their disciples, like, you know, this is the way, things like that. And so the Hierophant's counterpart is actually the High Priestess. So if you notice the High Priestess, she's very to herself, intuitive, you know, in like her own insight. The Hierophant is more like outside, like just, you know, this is the truth, I speak it. This is, you know, this is the way, these are the traditions and these are the rules. And in reverse, you know, sometimes in a reading too, I can pick up on the Hierophant being very breaking traditions. Say, you know, some traditions involve, I don't know, maybe, and this is just a random tradition, but typically in, say, some households, a tradition is to, maybe a family tradition is to drink a bottle or like a glass of beer before a meal, right? Everyone does it. It's been done in this family for generations, but alcohol isn't good for you. Or maybe you're allergic to alcohol, but they're pressuring you to fit into the tradition. And so you're like, no, I don't want to do that anymore. This isn't healthy for me. This isn't healthy for anybody. You know, do you want a stomach ache? Things like that. So you can kind of get those certain ideas and thoughts when you're doing a reading, because I don't know. I mean, there are obviously a lot of other traditions. So say like biblical traditions, religious traditions. So say, one example is like, say like LGBTQ plus community, right? That's in certain religious, you know, it's very out of the traditional norm. It's out of what their tradition states. But in reverse, you're like, we're breaking these traditions. We don't want to. This doesn't align with me anymore. This energy doesn't align with me. So, see, pick it up as you please. I just want to use that as an example of how you can break down or give more detail to a reading. So it also depends on just what you're, you know, what you're feeling in your gut, your intuition, right? Next is the Lovers. The Lovers is ruled by the element of air and the sign Gemini, typically because the Gemini is the twins. And of course, as I'm saying all of these, the properties and elements of the cards, you can also use your own research and the things that you find that best align with you. Of course, there are certain things that just kind of click together when we talk about the properties of the cards. Like say the Empress, right? The Empress is ruled by Venus because there's the Venus sign like right there, and Venus and Earth, or Venus, yeah, talks about abundance. So abundance lies with Earth. Earth is like tangible things, right? So the more material abundance we have, the more material things we have or possessions, it's kind of like we feel abundant, things like that. Also just, so it wouldn't really make sense if I was like, okay, the Empress is ruled by Saturn. And it's like, well, kind of not really. But of course, this is still tarot reading, and I just want to make that note just because there are a lot of differing, you know, versions of how people see the cards. So I don't want to be like, oh, this is exactly how, this is what this means. This is exactly what this means. These are just guidelines. Of course, when you start doing your own readings and you start getting more familiar with tarot, you can start just picking up things on your own, and you can, maybe, you know, the Magician isn't what I said it is. Maybe it's not about manifestation, right? Or maybe the Hierophant is no longer about traditions or things like that. So see it as you please. Next, we have the Chariot. The Chariot, and that's why I say typically, because it just kind of is like, this is what generally is agreed upon when we talk about tarot. But yeah, so the Chariot is ruled by the element of water and the astrological sign of Cancer. So think about water energy. Water is emotions. So things are also, if you think of how water moves, it just moves. It just goes forward, really, right? It just going with the flow. The Chariot, also in the imagery, there's like the black and white Sphinx, which have their own meanings. There's like the castle here, there's stars up here. This person kind of looks like very like a knight, you know, like a prince type. So you could also see it as, you know, taking charge of, you know, a mission or something like that. So there's that. Next we have the Strength card. The Strength is ruled by the element of fire and the sign Leo. Let's see your lion here. It represents good health, endurance, strength. You could also just look at the words themselves and then it can kind of tell you what it means too. Like the lovers. Lovers mean love, partnership, a connection, right? A connection between the lovers. The Chariot, what does Chariot do? A Chariot, you move forward. You're the Chariot, right? And the Strength itself is health, resiliency, having strength to do something. So there's that as well. So it's kind of like a mix of just, you know, picking up things from the pictures to the words, even numbers. The numerology can have a lot of meaning as well. It just depends on how you want to apply it. So say the number 8 in the Strength card. The 8 also represents, it kind of looks like the infinity sign. So you can kind of just put those things together and just like make those interpretations that fit, you know, or that not exactly fit, because sometimes that's where a lot of misconceptions can lie too, is like, oh, we're gonna find the images that fit the best for us instead of actually looking at things objectively. But okay. Anyways, we have the Hermit, which is next. I'm just seeing the time. Next is the Hermit. So the Hermit talks a lot about the quest for personal truth. If you think I'm going hermit mode, right? Hermit is like solitude, isolation, kind of keeping to yourself. If you notice, it's just like the one solo dolo person, and has the one solo dolo lamp, and he's kind of just like on his own little journey, kind of seeing just the steps in front of him. And so when we think of hermit mode, it's like, I'm just trying to seek better knowledge of myself, things like that. The Hermit is also ruled by the element of earth and the sign Virgo. So that's when we talk about the astrological and the signs, astrological signs and planets that are resembled in each card, you can use that to help you. So say like you're doing a reading on love or on a relationship or on certain people, maybe that gives you kind of clues on, you know, it kind of narrows it down, right? It's like the Hierophant, that's Taurus. So who's a Taurus that you're thinking of or that you're inquiring about? Some of them are more broad, like the Venus sign, right? Venus is Earth, so it could be any of the Earth signs, Taurus, Virgo, or Capricorn. So it does kind of like it just gives you more detail to the story you're telling. Next is the Wheel of Fortune, also number 10. So if you think in numerological sense, 10 is like kind of the end of a cycle, but not really, because after 10 is 11. But there's no like it kind of starts again. So 11, it's 1 1 and 1 2 instead of 1 whatever number comes after. So if you think about it that way, it also resembles like the wheel turning. So a turning point, it's more of a turning point instead of the end of something. Which the turning point, it could be a lucky turn, right? It's a turn of events. Things are, you know, the Wheel of Fortune, right? If you think of the Wheel of Fortune, it's all fortuitous. You're just turning the wheel and finding wherever it lands on. It could be, you know, a change in luck, right? See, those kind of phrases can apply in these readings as well. And the Wheel of Fortune is ruled by the element of fire and the planet Jupiter, which Jupiter is all about expansion and kind of growth. So as the wheel turns, our experience changes. So then we get different perspectives, we grow as people, etc., etc. Next we have the Justice card. Justice is ruled by the element of air and the sign Libra. If you notice the scales, right? Scales, the same thing as the symbol for Libra. Also the sword, so more of that air energy here too. The Justice card can definitely represent literally like if you think about the justice system, so like laws, cause and effect, balancing the scales. There's a lot of like balancing the heart and the mind here too. Justice can also, if you see a lot of like law office buildings, there are a lot of scales, right? So bringing justice into situations. So like I said, law, or even contracts, things that are law binding. So that could apply in a reading. Next, we have the Hanged Man. So the Hanged Man is ruled by the element of water and the planet Neptune, which Neptune is all about imagination. So the Hanged Man represents wisdom, perspective. This, in the tarot deck, this card, they say that this person, he purposely put himself upside down to gain different perspective. And because he was upside down, it's kind of like gaining enlightenment. It's like, you know, you had to see something so many different ways in order to like, oh, that clicks. I got that aha moment. Like, oh, I never seen it this way before, right? So that's the feeling that I get from the Hanged Man. The Hanged Man is also, since it's, you know, Neptune and imagination, what's your imagination, right? It's just putting different perspectives into like the ether sphere, really, like the in the realm of possibility. Your imagination goes wild, right? You can put like a pink elephant or like a pink flying elephant. That's in my imagination right now. So it's like shifting your perspective and using your imagination to broaden your mind, really. So there's that one. Next we have the Death card. So it doesn't actually mean like dying. It could be like the death of an idea, right? It could be the death of a situation. It could be, you know, the ending, right? It typically just means endings, letting go, moving on. Something is ending, but death also comes rebirth. And so I always notice too, well, I don't always, but sometimes I notice that there's a sun here. So I kind of feel it as like a new dawn is coming. You know, something had to end in order for something else to start, things like that. So the Death card is also ruled by the element of water and the sign Scorpio. So more of that, it's kind of like, it's like subtle but powerful, if that makes sense. Like Scorpios are very to themselves, they're very mysterious, they're very like, it's kind of like that, you know, very deep dark vibes, but the change is very influential and very, very, very powerful. So there's the Death card. Next we have Temperance. And then Temperance is, sorry, I'm just like checking the time because I recorded this once and yeah, I didn't record all of it and I was really, really sad. But so let's just keep going. Temperance means balance and harmony, and it's ruled by the element of fire and the zodiac sign of Sagittarius. So if you notice in the imagery here, it often resembles harmony, right? So if you think about people as energetic, you know, vessels, right? Or energy vessels. So if the water represents our energy and we're two, I'm one cup and someone else is another cup, I pour my energy into that person, that person pours their energy into me, and so it creates harmony. If there is a discord, if there is some sort of imbalance there, then it's either I'm giving and not receiving, or they're giving and or they're not receiving and they're giving, things like that, right? So the Temperance, and also if you think it's funny because every time I think of temperance, I think of tempering chocolate, how delicate of a balance that is, right? You're tempering chocolate, you're making sure that it doesn't burn or it doesn't, you know, however you temper chocolate. It's a harmonious balance of like cold and hot and things like that. So that's how you can apply it to here. Also, if you notice, there's the triangle with the orange, which the triangle upright like this, it does represent the symbol of like fire, the element of fire. You can also apply those into these readings. There are some, it's very interesting, there are some tarot decks out there that I found that use those, like the triangle symbols. So like earth is like the upside down triangle with the line, right, to represent earth, and then water is the down triangle without the line, and so on and so forth. Well, air is just the triangle upright with a line. But some tarot cards only use that as like an indicator of what the sign or the card means. So it's kind of funny. So it just requires a lot more like expansion of the mind, really. Getting to know more things. Next we have the Devil. So the Devil card, again, it doesn't literally, like the Death card, it doesn't literally mean like the devil, but it kind of gives the energy of what the devil does, kind of, in a way. It's kind of that. So the devil is it's like all the temptation, your greed, your addictions, things that make you feel like you're bound and chained to something. If you notice in the imagery, there's like they're chained to this pillar, they're bound and chained to it. But the devil is also ruled by the element of earth and Capricorn, so it could also represent Capricorn energy. But this, yeah, the devil doesn't actually mean the devil, but more of just like an ideology or a belief that I am like, you're never bound to anything, actually. But, you know, you can feel energetically tied to a situation, and it can feel like it could be toxic, things like that. So that's where I get this devilish energy. Up next, we have the Tower. And so like the most, there's like, it's kind of like a running joke with tarot readers that the most feared cards from the deck is either the Death, the Devil, or the Tower. The Tower card is the 16th card in the deck. It's ruled by the element of fire and the planet Mars. Mars is the planet of action, so things are happening. And so the Tower typically means like big, unexpected change. It's like getting the wind knocked out of your feet. Like if you know, I mean, look at the picture, right? There's a giant lightning ball, and it, like the buildings burn, you have to jump ship, you know, abandon ship tip kind of thing. And it's very scary looking. But in certain situations, in certain readings, it could definitely be seen as a positive change, right? It's almost like an intervention. Like say the devil, and it's funny, it's kind of built that way. It's as like the fool's journey through life. So after the devil comes the Tower. You needed to literally break these foundations in order to build something more stable and more that aligns with, that's for your highest good, really. So say this Tower, you know, it's like all this, and I say this a lot, is like a discomfort is also a comfort zone. So a discomfort is also a comfort in the sense that maybe this Tower has been here for ages, right? You've known this Tower, you've lived this Tower, you like are so, even though it's toxic, so maybe it could be like say a toxic workplace, right? And this toxic workplace, you've worked there for 10 years, and you know these certain people suck, and this sucks and that sucks, but you're used to it, so you know what to expect. Suddenly, you know, either the company goes bankrupt or you get fired. That feels like a Tower moment. It's like, oh my gosh, now what do I do? It feels like this really, really big change. But it's actually just allowing you to rebuild. It's like asking you to rebuild the structure, yeah, from scratch, but more healthier building, something more structurally sound and more practical and more, you know, for you, and that fits you instead of what was already there that doesn't serve its purpose anymore. So it's kind of like breaking out of, it's very uncomfortable and very scary, but it's almost like a necessary part of the journey, which is why, you know, it's unexpected, which can be scary too, which is why it's always like the most feared card out of the deck, because it's like, sometimes we get them, we're like, oh my god, something's gonna happen, something major is gonna happen. Like, for instance, maybe, and this is like a weird image that I'm just kind of getting, is like, what if you know, this big change was like, you got in a car accident, but because of this car accident, you gained a lot of this compensation because there were faults in a certain vehicle or in the vehicle you were driving, and because of that, that vehicle was then recalled and you saved countless lives, even though this was like a big unexpected change of your own, but it was changed for the better. See where I'm putting down? What I'm trying to put down. Sorry. Next, we have the Star card. The Star typically represents renewal and hope. You know, you think of a star, you wish upon a star, a shooting star, things like that, right? So this card is also ruled by the element of air and the sign Aquarius. So the Aquarians are water bearers, so they carry a lot of emotions with them. And so, you know, it's kind of like, you know, pouring out that energy where it can be much more productive. So say it's like pouring it into the pond or pouring it into, you know, the land so the water feeds the grass and the plants and things like that. But it typically just means like wishing out on a star. Wishes are being granted, right? Like you feel hopeful again, you feel renewed. Next we have is the moon. The moon card is ruled by the element of water and the sign Pisces. So Pisces is very emotional, very emotional. But also the moon, if you think about like the actual moon, right? The moon comes out at night, and things in the shadows are typically like hidden, right? So the moon in this case represents secrets, hidden emotions. With the water, with it being represented by water and emotion, the moon can mean hidden emotions, things that we don't exactly express to the world, things that we keep to ourselves. Next we have is the sun. So more of that dual energy, right? The sun and the moon, yin and yang. So the opposite. The sun is vital, like joyous, very happy, sunflowers, right? Things are growing, things are abundant, you feel good. This is that feel good, like, it's like seeing the sun for the first time in so long. You're just like, oh my gosh, I didn't know that the sun was so, like, it just felt so energizing, things like that. It could also be, this is represented by the element of fire and the planet, the sun. So literally the sun. So think sun, fire signs. So this could be like most fire signs, Aries, Leo, Sagittarius. So see it as you please. Next we have is the Judgment card. The Judgment typically means, see, I'm saying typically a lot, but I feel like I have to because it's general. But it means like a calling, like this is like a call to action. So I did read somewhere that these images are like graves. It's like being awoken from the grave, and it's like an angelic call. So maybe this could also mean Judgment Day. So like karma, things going full circle, feeling awakened. So maybe like starting a spiritual journey. This card is also ruled by the element of fire and the planet Pluto. So Pluto is all about transition. So a transitional period, right? We're shedding old skin. We're, evolving. We're shifting. We're changing. We're transitioning. So we have Judgment there. Finally, we end with the world. So the world is ruled by the element of earth and the planet Saturn. Saturn is all about structure and restriction. And so with the beginning, a new beginning, there is an ending. So this is kind of like that cycle of life. There's so many events coming in. There's abundance, there's tradition, there's love, there's action, there's finding yourself, there's, things into balance, perspective, things ending, things beginning, getting in and out of, from the sun to star to the moon to the sun. Things are just, it's kind of just like going through your life's events, and it's wrapped up in a pretty bow, right? Things are wrapping up. And also because this card is very similar to the Wheel of Fortune in the sense that, see, there's all these winged creatures, so things are happening. This is like taking flight. But here you have more Taurus, Leo, and like this eagle, bird, and like this person. So there's a lot of times people like to use the world and they see either Taurus or Leo represented with the card. Even though I haven't seen anywhere that has like that it's said, but like I said, this is very subjective and very open to interpretation. And so that is what I have for you in regards to my major arcana. I did want to point out what I said in the beginning, where I wanted to use this as a baseline because there's so many different like alternatives out there now. And it's not really an alternative, it's just like your vibe. And sometimes I'll look at a deck and I'll think, oh, it looks so pretty, I really love the pictures, and I'll go to the store, I'll go pick it up, and I'm like, oh, actually I don't really vibe with this that much, or things like that. But we're gonna move these away. I'm just gonna shuffle them because I gotta put them back in the deck. I'm kind of sad that it didn't record all the way the first time. But yeah, so we're laying out the full card, and I just wanted to show kind of like a same but different type of an energy when it comes to choosing your card, your decks. So these are all the full, right? Full is all about new beginnings, but when you're looking at tarot and doing a reading for yourself, you can also see the pictures and what they, you know, the different elements in the images, and you can get a different meaning for each one. So this one, I talked about this one already, but this is from the Happy Tarot, and I'll also leave a link to them, to all these decks below too if you're interested. But when you're picking up a deck, it's basically on like, do you like it or not? Excuse me. I am so sorry. Yeah, I just had like a weird coughing fit, and I think because I was like getting so close to, apparently on this app that I'm using to record, I only have a 40-minute like limit, so it's like, oh, catch your breath and come back. But anyways, so we have the Fool and several different decks. This one is the Happy Tarot, this is the Modern Witch Tarot, this one is the Light Seers Tarot, and this is from the White Sage Tarot. If you notice, you know, like say these two, super similar. So similar, right? But they're in the Modern Witch Tarot deck, I mean, if you look, there's also the back, and then the front images, you can see instead of the mountains, you see a city. So if I was to look at this card instead of this one, I'd say, okay, maybe you need to take a break away from the city, right? Get more in tune with nature. So I would get that from this card and not necessarily this one. Also, this card, I'm getting a lot of, see how this person's holding the rose or the flower. She's holding a phone and wearing headphones. So maybe it's like, you know, just listening to music, maybe therapeutic or maybe helpful here in this scenario. So again, see, each card can resemble different things. And so the whole deck itself is a whole different energy. And so when you're deciding, to give a reading or, you know, do your own reading, you can also use the decks themselves and their imagery and their theme to go along with what you're trying, with your intention of the reading. So say like this Happy Tarot. So the Happy Tarot, it doesn't have any, if you're still new to tarot, this deck you would have to get to know more a bit, because there's only the number and there's like tiny little like symbols for what it means, but it doesn't actually just lay it out. So these ones would be good because it all says 0 and the Fool, 0 and the Fool, 0 and the Fool. This one is just a 0. So for someone that may not be as, I guess not in tune, but doesn't really, is still unfamiliar with tarot, I wouldn't recommend this one just yet, but it's super cute. And this one gives like totally different vibes, right? I mean, it's like same, like they're on like Cinnamon Roll Mountain, but this one's way happier, and it's kind of just like, yay, new adventure, right? It's even the Bad News Bears ones, like the tower in this deck, it just makes the bad news, it's like sprinkle some glitter on a turd. It just makes it, it's like, okay, you know, or maybe like this Tower Woman's not that bad, or this new beginning's not that bad. It's super cute. With this one, this is from the Light Seers Tarot. If you notice, she has this yellow dress on, so perhaps, you know, color therapy, right? Yellow. Also, if you associate with the chakras, the yellow represents the solar plexus chakra. So action, I do, that can do spirit. And it's more about feeling confident in yourself. And also, if you notice, instead of a phone or a rose, she's holding a crystal. So it's purple, so I like to see it as like an amethyst. So an amethyst may be important in a reading that you pick up this deck with. And then this one, there's not even a person in it. There's an animal, and there's a little puppy. And so in this particular deck, see, they're all the Fool, but this one, you know, I see, when I see this, I feel that sense of like that puppy energy. Like puppies don't exactly analyze things before they do something. They kind of just do it, and they're still happy about it. It's kind of just like that ignorance is bliss type of a vibe that I'm getting. Like there's all this like dark, dim storm kind of behind him, but he's just like, nope, 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 just gonna trot along with my happy stick. The happy, happy guy. So I did want to put these as like little footnotes in this video, just in case like you're, you know, you're interested, but maybe you're not into the original Rider-Waite. I do recommend this as kind of like a baseline to get to know it on a basic level. But once you want to expand, right, there's so many different versions out there. There's so many different styles, different looks, different colors. Colors also apply here too. So gray, right? There's a lot of gray here. There's a lot of blue here, a lot of yellow here. There's a lot of yellow here. So you can pick up on different elements of each card and get totally different meanings from the same, essentially the same card. See, that's my calling too. I thought I muted my laptop and I did not, so. I think I'm gonna go ahead and leave this here. I do hope that this was a lot. I mean, I talk a lot, but I hope that the information that I provided was good and that you enjoyed this video. I don't think I have anything else. I might have like some random thought in another video, but this is all in, you know, an educational series. So I hope that you did get something from this video. I hope that, you know, there's, like I said in the beginning, and I will continue to say this, tarot it's very open for interpretation. And even though I did give properties and like it's certain meanings, and it's kind of just like a guideline for you. And you know, you may pick up something completely different when you pick up a card and, you know, you're like, oh my gosh, this is like, you know, maybe I'm kind of set on my own ways of how I see these cards now, but, you know, you may see the Fool card as something completely different. Even in, and I will say this too, even in the Rider-Waite tarot deck, so this is the little pamphlet that it comes with. This is just all like pure transparency because I do read these. And that's one thing too. A lot of the decks, they come with their own little booklet, and sometimes they have their own interpretations of it too, and their own story to tell. So you can get to know the decks much better that way by reading their own story. And each of their cards has, even though it's like similar in topic, or say it's kind of just like apples. I'm thinking of apples, right? But this is like a green apple, Fiji apple, whatever apple, a tiny whatever apple. They're all like different varieties of the same thing. So, what did I say? The Fool, right? Oh, see, it's funny. The Fool is like in the end. See, in this interpretation, in the booklet, it says folly, mania, extravagance, intoxication, delirium, frenzy, and bewrayment. And then, so, you know, some see the Fool as like, right? It's like you're being a fool, you're acting a fool, right? Frenzy, delirious. I don't get the delirious energy, so I definitely, like, I don't see it that way. You can kind of see it that way if that's what you pick up on. And I might pick up on that in a different reading, but to me, it's different. And that's what I mean by it's totally up for interpretation. And I mean, tarot is like all about perspective and using your imagination, and there is no set way to heal, so there is no set way to read cards. These are suggestions and these are guidelines, and these are kind of what as far as what I researched, kind of like okay, we agree that the Lovers means love, right? Or we kind of all agree that the Strength means strength, right? Instead of like, oh, strength means your lover's coming back, or so it's kind of just like there are certain things that that kind of just click and make sense and align with what, you know, the planetary element, the literal element, and like the astrological sign that fit into the vibe. But there are certain, it's flexible. There you go. So yeah, I'm gonna go ahead and end the video here. If you have any questions, leave them in the comments, and I'll answer more, but I don't want to keep this, yeah. So all of the links for these cards and the decks that I used today will be in the description box down below. Please be sure to like and subscribe to my channel if this, you know, if you found this helpful and useful. I'm sorry for my rambling. I wanted to make these so short, but I feel like there's just so much out there and there's so much interpretation that I can't tell you, okay, this exactly means this exactly means this. It's so expanding, and it's everyone is welcome. So yeah. But I hope you enjoyed this video. I will be doing more videos explaining the rest of the tarot deck. I will be doing probably 4, one for each suit, so one for Pentacles, Wands, Cups, and Swords. That way, you know, I get in depth, you know, I talk about all of it, and I hope that this helps, and I hope that, you know, it gave you a bit more confidence in your own tarot reading. And yeah, I hope that you all enjoyed. Like I said, that's it. And I hope you all take care. Have a great day or night whenever you're watching, and I'll see you guys next time. Bye.